What happened was that our fathers had beaten the most vivid example of what we did not want, Hitler. And then they came home, job done, to the birth of television, which at the beginning had no money for programming. And so they showed old American movies like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington and John Ford films, all of which taught you to love this country. And we went into the 60s with a love affair. And then that love affair turned into a battle, and that battle turned into a separation. Which, when we got to the 70s,
the heartbreak set in.
The belief that it was a fraud
came in. Now, what do you think about this theory now that Obama talks about transparency in government? Do you think it works? Do you think young people are paying attention? Do you think it might change largely the cynicism that we've been seeing? Do you think people will come around?
Obama is, on one level, a kind of miracle in politics and an opportunity that is beyond my ability to articulate. However, he's also a politician and is quite capable of being smaller than we hope him to be.
He's human, after all.
And that means that he would continue the practices of decay. And we are in decay, and not just in education, but I could point to any section of this culture, entertainment, business. It doesn't take a lot to see any headline that points to the fact that doing good is not
popular.
That being responsible and accountable is not popular. And that selfishness has gone way beyond whatever we thought. The fact is that in the New York Post there was a headline that said, 1 week after the bailouts, it said, mortgage rates go up and foreclosures go up. They didn't even take a breath. Now the fact is, a democracy in any incarnation, however you decide, sooner or later becomes the agreement to share political space with those with whom you disagree. And when you are yelling at the top of your voice and interrupting and patronizing and bullying, you're not sharing anything.
You're not listening. You don't have discourse.
You don't have discourse. And that's what we have to bring back. And can it be brought back? Absolutely. And it can be brought back literally by an intake of breath and a change of perspective. Because the same teachers can teach through 100 million ways the idea of the other opinion being represented, or the concept of dissent being represented and honored. If you don't honor a dissenter, then you don't know anything about the history of the country. And you also have to stop simplifying everything. The media insists that we simplify.
The sound bites and
Yeah.
the little headlines.
And the fact is, there are things that are complex and
very
require
much.
time.
Very much. Now, that's something else I've heard in some interviews I've heard you talk about, that it seems like the whole concept of time has shifted because of the technology.
Yep.
So how do we either change it or morph with it? Because it is what it is. And I even heard you talking about the synapses in our brain that are suddenly adjusting to this new wave of how we think. So how do we bring back some old concepts back in, mix it into what's new?
Well, let me bring back one really old concept.
Yeah.
We got a gun at our heads that we don't know is at our heads. We've got a gun cocked at our heads.
Which is?
Which is that we have developed technologies,
Yeah.
from nuclear to computer to broadcast, all of which combined together have taken time out of decision making.
Right.
Which means that if you make a mistake, And mankind's history is filled.
Full of mistakes. We have to have that opportunity too.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we don't. There's no fat. And if you are corralled by the wrong people, if you are led down the wrong path, and you are raised to what is called the mass hysteria of crowds.
Right.
The Constitution of the United States was built to protect us from the tyranny of the majority. And most people now think that the Constitution was built to protect us from the tyranny of the minority.
Right.
And in fact, it's just the opposite.
It's right. It's why the country was founded.
We have to give, somehow, intellectually, the same time, freedom to think and ruminate that the Atlantic Ocean gave us when we designed the Constitution. If we had tried to do that in Europe, they would have slaughtered us to the last man.
That's right.
So we had the Atlantic Ocean to protect us from them.
Time and distance were on our side.
That means that the computer technology people have to understand that the speed of things is not the most important priority.
Right.
That raising up intelligence is as important or more. That broadcast people have to understand that gridding the whole world with the ability to show the same news in the same nanosecond is unique and has never, ever been done before in 13,000 years.
Right. And it's not necessarily the best way.
And boy, we got to be cautious about it.
Right.
Because when the towers fall, and all we have is grief and sorrow and rage, and we don't know who and what and where.
Right.
If we make a mistake, we can end civilization in a minute.
No, we definitely have the capacity, that's for sure.
And that capacity has never been until now.
Right.
And so people don't realize that what was is not what always will be, and that what is now is different, even if we can't see it.
Yeah.
And that's why I call history a tsunami.
How so?
Because a tsunami is massive changes that are going on underneath our feet invisibly.
Right, below the surface.
And we're not aware of them until they overwhelm us.
Right.
So broadcast technology and computer technology, they don't know that what they've actually done, aside from making secretarial functions sexy.
Right.
Oh, look, you can change that font and put it into that little file cabinet. Wow.
Right.
Is that they've taken time and thrown it away.
Yeah.
So that no game, no video game, and we have computers, laptops now, that are the equivalent of more than the computer power that took us to the moon.
Right.
No game raises up patience, rumination, contemplation, time to change your mind. And there can be.
Yeah.
And I'm waiting for the entrepreneurial genius to figure out the game, and requires you to take time
to think,
to do it.
Yeah. Now, is that when you mentioned the Enlightenment, and then I had heard another interview where you mentioned about the darkness, that there's a very small window of opportunity where we have this Enlightenment, and then it would be a period of darkness, meaning that we were headed towards that, or that you're just referring to history that way?
No, I'm saying that there's Dreyfuss Universal Law number 22.
Yes.
Is that no matter who you are or what you know or what you think you've learned, sooner or later, thinking makes your head hurt, and you fall back on the nearest prejudice. And that's a truth about humanity. And what we did in this country was to respect people enough to say that they were sovereign, they were the ultimate authority. But Jefferson cunningly left out how to do that, how to teach people how to be sovereign. Right? And you've got to teach people how to take responsibility for their nation, how to know who's whispering in my ear, who owns the media. And if one guy owns between, let's say, 35 and 60% of the media, of all English-speaking media.
Yeah.
And isn't that an interesting subject to discuss?
Sure.
And if so, why aren't we?
Right.
And if
There are
Rupert
laws
Murdoch,
about this?
and Rupert Murdoch is the guy that I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that Rupert Murdoch owns as much of the media as he does.
Yeah, isn't there antitrust laws?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aren't there laws